कनकोत्तमकान्तिः सा सुकान्ति कनकाम्बरा देवी कनकवर्णाभा कनकोत्तमभूषणा कमलाङ्कुशपाशाब्जैरलङ्कृतचतुर्भुजा मीरा श्रीमीरा कमलालक्ष्मी सा श्रीरुक्माम्बुजासना इमां यः पूजयेत् भक्त्या स व्याप्नोति चराचरम् भुक्त्वा भोगान् यथा कामः देवी सायुज्यमाप्नुयात् मीरा शरणं मम मीरा शरणं मम ॐ श्री मीरा शरणं मम मीरा
Mantras of our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, "It is not by your mind that you can hope to understand the divine and its action, but by the growth of the true and divine consciousness within you. If the divine were to unveil and reveal itself in all its glory, the mind might feel a presence, but it would not understand its actions or its nature. It is in the measure of your own realization and by the birth and growth of that greater consciousness in yourself that you will see the divine and understand its action, even behind its terrestrial disguises, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo. With love and blessings, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Words of our Divine Mother, taken from the collective works of our Divine Mother, question and answers, year 1955, date 6th July, page 223. Our Divine Mother reads from Lights on Yoga, topic planes and paths of the being. And then the child says, "Sweet Mother, here it is written, finally the soul or the psychic being retires into the psychic world to rest there till a new birth is closed. Then Mother, sweet Mother, what happens to the central being afterwards?" For this, our Divine Mother says, this depends absolutely on different instances. We said that the central being and the psychic being are the same thing, but the part which stays and is in the divine stays and is in the divine. The psychic being is the delegate of this divine in the earth life for the growth on earth. But the part of the central being which is identified with the divine remains identified with the divine and does not change. Even during life, it is identified with the divine. After death, it remains what it is or what it was in life, for it makes no difference. It is the psychic being which has alternations of experience, assimilation, experience, and assimilation, but the Jivatman is in the divine, remains in the divine, does not move from there, and it is not progressive. It is in the divine, identified with the divine, remains identified and not separated. It makes no difference whether there's an earthly body or not. Then the child says, Sweet mother, is everyone's central being the same? For this, our divine mother says, No. For we are told that it is identified in multiplicity. It is the eternal truth of each being. From one point of view, they are identical, from another, they are multiple. Because the truth of each being is an individual truth but is identified with the divine. It is outside the manifestation, but it is the origin of the manifestation. It is a unity which is not a uniformity. It is indeed the same thing that I was explaining last time. Each one is different and yet each one is identical. If you approach the divine from various angles, he seems to you different because of the angle from which you approach him. It's the same thing for the manifested. But in this angle, it is all the same, if I may say so, the complete unity of the divine which one attains. It is the meeting point which is different, but beyond the meeting point, it is a single totality. Our Divine Mother says it's very difficult to put it in words, but it is an experience which one can have. It is as though there were innumerable doors or paths by which one could reach the divine. So, when one approaches, he does so from a certain angle. He enters by a certain door, but as soon as he has gone right in, he realizes that it is a single oneness. It is the only one path that's leading to it, the particular approach which is different. And then the child says, Sweet mother, the Jivatman, the moment it presides over the dynamics of the manifestation, says our Lord, knows itself as one center of the multiple divine, not as the Parameshwara. For this, our Divine Mother says, that's exactly what I've just said. So, the child says, Sweet mother, when Sri Aurobindo was in Alipur, Swami Vivekananda came for 15 days and explained something special to him. Which part or what part of Sri Aurobindo was it, the psychic being or the Atman? For this, our Divine Mother says it could be very well be in his mind. It could very well be the mind because he has unified his mind around his psychic being. Therefore, his mind continues to exist indefinitely. It partakes of the immortality of the psychic being, and it could be from the mind. For this, the child says, Sweet mother, can one enter into communion with the Jivatman? Can one enter into communion with his Jivatman without the ego being dissolved? For this, our Divine Mother says that's what Sri Aurobindo says. He says that the ego survives the physical life, the bodily life. This is perfectly correct. There is the vital ego, a mental ego, which continue to exist for a quite longer time. But one can have experiences without the ego being dissolved. Otherwise, who would have experiences? How many people are there who have dissolved their ego? They can't be very many, I think. Our Divine Mother says, when one has an experience, it is as though one went through his ego to have this experience, and one can, if he continues, end up by diminishing the hardness, the obscurity of the ego, making it more and more plastic, permeable by multiplying the experiences. That's something one feels very clearly, that one passes through something like a hard shell which prevents him from having the experiences one passes through, has the experience. When he comes back, he again has the impression of going through a shell which shuts him in, imprisons him for a longer time. That's how it is. But those who have succeeded in entering consciously into contact with the psychic being, let me repeat, but those who have succeeded in entering consciously into contact with their psychic being can keep this contact. to pass completely to the other side of the ego so that it no longer intervenes. A fairly long time is needed. It doesn't depend or happen at all immediately. And then you feel that thing which, seen from within, suffocates you, and seen from outside, it has an insignificant consistency, but it prevents the being from feeling integrally the intensity of the experience. It is like a layer which diminishes the intensity of the vibration, the intensity of the consciousness. You feel that. You feel it as something very fixed and very opaque. Many people certainly have experiences, but they don't remember them. That is because when they pass through this layer of the ego, they forget everything, lose the memory of the experience. But when one has formed the habit, perhaps the memory is a little dimmed, having the intensity, exactness, but it does remain, says our Divine Mother. Next question from page 229. Question: Sweet Mother, can one imagine the divine and have the contact? For this, our Divine Mother says, certainly. If you succeed in imagining the divine, you have the contact. You can have the contact with what you imagine. In any case, in fact, it is absolutely impossible to imagine something which doesn't exist somewhere. You can't imagine anything at all which doesn't exist. It is possible that it does not exist on earth. It is possible that it is elsewhere. But it is impossible for you to imagine something which is not already contained in the principle in the universe, otherwise, it does not occur. Question: Sweet Mother, what does cosmic spirit and cosmic nature mean? Universal. Cosmic is a symbol or a synonym of universal. But what does cosmic spirit mean? Our Divine Mother says it is a universal spirit. It is a spirit that's in the whole universe. You know what the universe is? It's a spirit that has a complexity, a consciousness. It's a cosmic, universal consciousness. One may very well imagine that the universe as an entirety is something which is quite vaster. The individual is only an entity in a much vaster totality. Now, until each one has its own consciousness, own spirit, which contains all the others as a group consciousness, is made up of all the individual consciousness which constitute it and something more. The individual is only an element in the whole, even as the earth is part of the solar system. The solar system makes a part of the systems of the universe. So, just as there is an individual consciousness, there's a group consciousness, consciousness of the system, a universal consciousness which is made up of a set of all consciousness composing it. Just like you have lots and lots of cells in your body, so each cell has its own consciousness, and you have a consciousness which is the consciousness of the total individual, though made up of all these small cellular consciousness. For this, the child says, Mother, sweet mother, here it is written there is a wall of separative ignorance between the individual and the cosmic consciousness. Then, how to break this wall? For this, our Divine Mother says, to break that wall, get rid of the ignorance, enter the knowledge. First of all, you must know what I've just told you. You are a part of a whole. That this whole is a part of the greater whole, and this greater whole is again a part of a still greater whole, right up to the forming of one single totality. Once you know that, you begin to become aware that in reality there cannot be any separation between you and something greater than you, of which you are a part. This is a beginning. Now you must come to the point not only of thinking this, but of feeling it, even living it, and then the wall of ignorance stumbles, and one feels this unity everywhere, realizes that he is only a more or less fragmentary part of the whole, much vaster than he, the universe. Then one begins to have more of the universal consciousness. Question, sweet mother, what does one has to do to be possessed by the divine? For this our divine mother says, you mean possessing by the divine? The divine mother says, it means the divine enters into you, governs you, becomes the master of your consciousness and moments. This is indeed being called as possessed by the divine. For this the child says, sweet mother, it is the separation of Satchit Ananda which has brought about ignorance suffering. For this our divine mother says, probably there are no other moral notions. It is probable that if they had not been separated, there would not have been universe. It was perhaps a necessity. But what you are asking is how it was foreseen. It would happen in this way. Perhaps it was foreseen. So long as you want to apply your mental moral notions to the creation of this universe, you will never understand anything, because from all sides and all ways it goes beyond the conceptions of good and evil, all the mental and moral conceptions, and this part of ourselves which indeed lives in a total ignorance. Things are like that because they are like that. The mind explains one thing this way or the other, and it's explained and then has lots of explanations. So you have to pierce a hole in the air, see things in another way, and one has to begin. And then how do you do that? Our Divine Mother says, aspiration is like an arrow. You aspire, want very earnestly to understand and know the truth. And then, with that aspiration, your aspiration rises and rises straight up, very strong, and then it strikes a kind of a hard iron, extremely thick. It does not pass through. And then you say, what's the use of aspiring? It brings nothing. I meet with something hard and cannot pass. But about the drop of water which falls on the rock, it ends up by making a chasm. It cuts the rock from top to bottom. Your aspiration is a drop of water which, instead of falling, rises. So, by dint of rising, it beats and beats, and one day it makes a hole, a dint of rising, and it makes the hole. Suddenly, it springs up from the slit, entering the immensity of light. You may say, I understand, it's like that. So, one must be very persistent, stubborn, and have an aspiration which rises straight upwards, which does not keep roaming here and there. Only this, understand, to learn to know. When one reaches the very top, there's nothing more to understand. Everything knows everything, says our Divine Mother.